Chapter 1, That Discovery. The year was 2175, and Earth was a vastly different place from what it once was. Cities, now sprawling metropolises, were constructed of towering skyscrapers made of steel and glass, their edges reflecting the harsh glow of neon advertisements that blanketed every surface. The sun was a mere memory in most parts of the world, its rays often blocked by layers of smog and the permanent haze that hung over the urban landscapes. Nature had become a luxurious something of the past. The once vibrant forests, fields, and oceans had been replaced by concrete jungles and endless highways, designed for the ease of transportation and the efficiency of a hyper-connected world. For most people, life was lived through a screen. Communication, work, relationships all were conducted in the virtual world, and everything was monitored. The lines between the physical and the digital had blurred, leaving the population more disconnected from reality than ever before. And in the background of this new world, the corporations reigned supreme. Governments had long since dissolved, their power replaced by the likes of the GlobalTech Consortium, Omnicorp, and various other mega-corporations that controlled everything: resources, media, healthcare, and even the law. People had grown complacent. Most had accepted their place in this new world, believing that it was the only way forward. The few who questioned the system were labeled as radicals, troublemakers, or worse, erased from history. The notion of rebellion had been buried under layers of control, surveillance, and corporate propaganda. But in the shadows of this world, a revolution was quietly taking root. A revolution that would begin with one man. A man named Arvind. Arvind was not an exceptional man, at least not by the standards of his society. He was an engineer, or one of many who worked tirelessly to maintain the technological infrastructure that kept the world running smoothly. His days were spent in the bowels of GlobalTech's massive headquarters, coding algorithms, troubleshooting systems, and ensuring that the vast networks of the corporation remain operational. The work was mundane, repetitive, and for the most part, unremarkable. It was a job, and like most people, Arvind took comfort in the predictability of his life. He lived in a small, automated apartment on the outskirts of the city, where everything from the lighting to the temperature was controlled by a centralized system. His meals were delivered by drones, and his interactions with others were limited to the occasional virtual meeting. Arvind had no real friends, no family to speak of. His existence was a solitary one, and he had learned to accept it. But there was a quiet unease inside him. It wasn't something he could easily explain, but it was there lurking beneath the surface of his routine life. Perhaps it was the monotony of it all. Perhaps it was the growing sense that something was wrong with the world, something that couldn't be fixed by just doing his job. Whatever it was, it had begun to gnaw at him. And then, one evening, everything changed. Arvind had been working late, as he often did. The company's central server room was a cold, sterile place, filled with rows upon rows of servers and glowing monitors that flickered with streams of data. He sat alone in front of a massive terminal, his fingers moving across the keyboard as he corrected errors in the system's code. It was the kind of task that required focus, but it also gave him time to think, time to reflect on the world around him, and the strange feeling that something was amiss. As he typed, something unusual happened. A strange flicker appeared on his screen. At first, he thought it was a glitch, a minor error in the system, but as he stared at it, he realized that it wasn't random. It was a pattern. A series of encrypted lines of code, hidden deep within the system, far beyond the usual security protocols. Someone, or something, was trying to communicate with him. Curious, Arvind followed the trail, his fingers moving with increasing urgency. He knew that tampering with the company's core systems was risky, but something inside him urged him to continue. He felt like he was on the verge of uncovering something important. And so, he pressed on. The code led him to a file that had been buried for years, its existence hidden from all but the most senior executives. The file was encrypted, of course, but Arvind's skills as a coder allowed him to bypass the layers of security with ease. As the file opened, a single message appeared on the screen. "Wake up, Arvind. The revolution begins with you." For a moment, Arvind simply stared at the message, unsure of what to make of it. Was it a joke? A prank? Or something more sinister? He quickly scanned the file for any other clues, but there was nothing, just the message, staring back at him, as if it were waiting for him to take the next step. His heart began to race. He had no idea what this meant, but he felt a strange pull inside him, a sense of urgency, as if the world was about to change in a way he could not yet comprehend. He glanced around the server room, half expecting someone to be watching him, but the room was empty. The hum of the servers was the only sound, steady and unrelenting. Arvind leaned forward, his mind racing. The message seemed to imply something far greater than a simple technical glitch. It spoke of a revolution, a change that would begin with him. But how could that be possible? He was just a low-level engineer, a cog in the machine. What could he possibly do to bring about a revolution? As he pondered the message, another thought struck him. The system he was working on, the one that controlled everything from transportation to communication, wasn't just a tool for efficiency. It was a tool for control. The corporations, like GlobalTech, had designed these systems to keep the population in check. They had made sure that no one could challenge their authority. But what if the very system that kept people enslaved could also be used to break them free? Arvind's mind raced with possibilities. What if this message was a signal? A call to action from someone who had seen through the lies and the propaganda? Someone who had figured out how to fight back? He had to know more. For the next few days, Arvind became obsessed. He spent every free moment combing through the system's archives, searching for any clue that could explain the message. He found more hidden documents detailing past uprisings, suppressed histories of rebellions that had been erased from public knowledge. There were whispers of a time before the corporations had taken control, a time when people had been free to make their own choices, when governments had been held accountable, and when the world had been a place of opportunity and possibility. But all of that had been wiped away, buried under layers of corporate propaganda and technological surveillance. The corporations had created a world where nothing could escape their control, and anyone who dared to question the system was silenced. The people had been conditioned to believe that their lives were as they should be, that the corporations were benevolent entities that were working for the greater good. But Arvind could see through the lies. The more he uncovered, the more he realized that the revolution was not just possibly, it was necessary. It was late one night when Arvind finally uncovered the truth. He had cracked the last layer of encryption and discovered the true nature of the message. It was from someone within the corporation, a higher-ranking executive who had grown disillusioned with the system. This individual, whose identity was hidden behind a pseudonym, had orchestrated the release of this information in the hope that someone would find it. Someone like Arvind. The message contained instructions and directions on how to contact a resistance movement that had been operating in the shadows for years. A movement dedicated to overthrowing the corporate regime and restoring freedom to the people. Arvind's hands trembled as he read the final words of the message. You are not alone, Arvind. The revolution is waiting for you to lead it. For the first time in his life, Arvind felt a sense of purpose. The quiet unease that had been building inside him for so long had finally been given a name: revolution. The world had been deceived, trapped in a system of control, and it was up to him to help bring about change. But as he sat there, staring at the message on his screen, one question remained: what would he do next? The story of Arvind's discovery had only just begun. What lay ahead was a journey that would challenge everything he knew about the world, about himself, and about the power of one individual to change the course of history.